Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. I've been reading and filming like crazy since the start of this year, as I'm now back at uni next weekend, and I don't really know how much time I'm going to have to record once I do start back. But today we have Windfall by Jennifer E. Smith. This is 416 pages. It has a 3.5-star rating on Goodreads and took me 48 hours to finish. Alice doesn't believe in luck, at least not the good kind. She believes in love. Alice has been in love with her best friend, Teddy, for the last 3 years. On his 18th birthday, she buys him a lottery ticket, and to their astonishment, he wins the jackpot. The two of them are suddenly thrown together with the world at their feet, and when Teddy finally decides how to spend his money, who better to go on that adventure with him than Alice? But money can't buy you love, and Alice and Teddy are about to find out more about themselves and each other than they could have ever imagined. I reached chapter 5 in what felt like no time at all. I was heavily invested in the plot and what I knew of it so far, although I felt that was just as much due to the writing as it was to my personal experiences. Alice seems like a genuine girl, and as much as I want things to work out for her, I know that from reading the synopsis, things are going to be very complicated. 5 chapters in, there's an almost kiss. And I'm fully aware that I'm a sucker for something like that anyway, but for that scene to have as much tension as it did so early on, there was some serious character investment. And as I mentioned, I felt that at this point this was just as much due to the writing as it was due to my own experiences. I first put the book down at chapter 6 because it was almost 11:30 and I was shattered, but I couldn't wait to carry on reading the next day. So the next day, I kept thinking, what film had I been watching last night? And it wasn't until I picked the book up again that evening that I realised I hadn't watched the film. What I was remembering was what I'd seen in my head as I read the book, which I just think says so much. Chapter 6, I was all in. This was giving classic young adult romance, and I was loving it. Halfway through chapter 7, things were getting slightly too real for me. All I'll say is that the first line of this synopsis reads, Alice has been in love with her best friend Teddy for the past 3 years. That situation is something I feel I can identify with, and chapter 7 mentions some of the complications that Alice is facing with regards to that situation, and so a lot of memories were brought about. So it's stated in this book synopsis that Alice and Teddy win the lottery, but I was still so shocked and so happy when they actually won, which I just think is great writing. They win the lottery, he just picks her up, spins her around, and kisses her. This first kiss caught me so off guard. I dropped the book and almost lost my page. But I carry on reading, and just as I think, oh my goodness, they're still kissing, the text says, then just as quickly he lets go. Okay, this isn't a spoiler because it's in the synopsis. They win the lottery, but they've lost the ticket. So they're searching and searching for this ticket, and the whole time Alice is just thinking, Teddy kissed me. Reality check. They've won the lottery, had a heat of the moment kiss. They tell Teddy's family about them having won the lottery, and Teddy's mum immediately starts lecturing him on what to do with the money. Teddy isn't stupid, okay? He's got his head screwed on properly, so this just irritated me beyond belief. However many chapters later, they still haven't spoken about the kiss, and it's really bothering me. It's pretty much all I can think about, and all Alice can think about, and she and Teddy haven't spoken about it. Okay, so literally in the next chapter, Alice realises that she and Teddy haven't spoken about the kiss. Thanks for catching up. At the end of this chapter, I felt that Alice was getting some attention or romantic interest from another guy, and I was not here for it. I just thought, sit down, she knows what she wants and it's not you. 2 chapters later, they still haven't spoken about the kiss, and it's really bothering me. So I'm starting to like Teddy a little less now. Admittedly, he's an 18-year-old who's just won the lottery, so he's very excited. But there are just other situations at present that I feel he should be being more mature about. At this point, as much as I'm aware that they are best friends, I am also shipping them, and so I'm getting quite annoyed at anyone who gets in the way of that. No, why? Teddy completely lets the money go to his head. They have somewhat of a heated conversation about it, but as someone who hasn't had a lot of money, Teddy is still too much in a state of sort of euphoria to have a sane conversation. I was seriously annoyed at this point. I had to put the book down for a moment. Alice was trying to have a serious conversation and tried to address the kiss, but Teddy's still so focused on the money that he's won to form a rational response or respond properly at all. Even though I already know what's happened, Teddy has let the money go to his head and just isn't really the nicest person to be around right now. It was a bit of a kick in the teeth when Alice is asked exactly what's going on between the two of them, and she just says, I don't even know if we're friends right now. Okay, so that guy who I mentioned earlier that Alice works with, and I said I was not here for it, he keeps asking Alice out on a date, and she keeps saying no. At this point, she's now really upset about Teddy and annoyed at him. That guy from work asks her out to dinner, and she says yes. I was not happy about this. I understood why she said yes in those circumstances, but I just thought, Alice, you're worth so much more than that. Okay, so I didn't know how to feel. Alice went out with that guy from work because she needed a distraction from everything Teddy. But when they do go out, they actually have a really good time and find out they have stuff in common. So although there's definitely chemistry there, I'm not ready to give up on Alice and Teddy. Again, one of those moments where I said no out loud. So Alice is out with that guy from work, and in the euphoria of the moment, she accidentally calls him Teddy. It just slips out, and I did not know what to do. Alice describes the feeling as the same feeling you get when you accidentally call your teacher mum. But yeah, she apologises, and Sawyer just says, oh, it's fine. Should we try again? They're at like an arcade and are playing whatever kind of game. So although my heart is still with Alice and Teddy, I do like Sawyer a lot more now, simply just because of how he dealt with that situation. Okay, so their whole date, Sawyer has said it's like a choose your own adventure type thing, and at each point he gives Alice 3 options to choose from, which I think is super cute. Bearing in mind the whole time she knows that she needs to process things and get over Teddy, and she's hoping that Sawyer and being with Sawyer will help her to be able to do this. Oh my goodness, oh my goodness, oh my goodness, oh my goodness. That should be my catchphrase in this channel. Okay, Sawyer drops Alice back home, and she says, like, oh, what happens now? Sawyer says, option 1, I walk you to the door and say goodnight. Alice says, what's option 2? Sawyer says, option 2 is I kiss you now. When I say the fanboy in me absolutely freaked out. Oh my goodness, anyway. Yeah, she like puts her hand on his chest and says like, oh, and option 3. And Sawyer says, option 3 is you kiss. And then she cuts him off and kisses him. I had no words. I was so happy. I was freaking out. It was very, very cute. My inner fanboy practically burst into flames. Then, immediately afterwards, Alice is thinking, Sawyer is a great guy and he's a great kisser, but he's not Teddy, which was very bittersweet. I gasped and nearly dropped the book. Okay, everything that's happened between Alice and Teddy has happened. She's eventually tried to move forward after a very long time, gone out on a date, kissed this really nice guy. Alice gets back home and Teddy is sat on her doorstep. Okay, last the reader knew, Teddy was in Mexico or something. Oh, and I probably should have mentioned, this book consists of 4 parts, which are all made up of chapters. Part 3 ends when Alice sees Teddy on her doorstep. What a cliffhanger. Amongst everything else, Alice finds out that her brother broke up with his boyfriend, not under the best circumstances. And at this point, I just wanted to reach into the book and give all the characters a hug. I'd almost forgotten how normal it was for authors to torture their characters and how expected it should be. So, in the midst of a lot of emotional turmoil, that coming-of-age theme is still consistent. As Alice is becoming an adult, her parents are still trying to tell her what to do. I felt in some kind of last desperate attempt to do something, I don't know, before she starts living her own independent life. Teddy ends up leaving Alice by herself when they are meant to be together, meant to be working together. But when he leaves, Sawyer is there almost immediately. I felt like this might be signalling a transition from feeling like she needed Teddy to discovering who she is with Sawyer. So Sawyer, who Alice has chemistry with, asks Alice, "You really like him, don't you?" I was devastated, and as much as I still wanted Alice and Teddy to work out, Teddy had since showed who he really was. Sawyer treats Alice how she deserves. They only work together, but even he can see how she feels about Teddy. Alice knows that Sawyer likes her in some way, and she ends up thinking how she wishes that she felt the same. I then realised how much easier that would make things for her if she was over Teddy and she found a healthy romantic relationship. But I am still somewhat invested in her and Teddy, and I'm not sure how I feel about how things are moving between Alice and Sawyer since their first kiss. So Alice and Teddy have got their situation going on. They've both got their own individual situations that they're trying to deal with. And then hearing that he's won the lottery, Teddy's absentee dad appears out of nowhere saying that he wants to mend and rekindle things. Obviously, given the timing, we were all thinking, that's a load of rubbish. We, being myself and the other characters. But he does stick around long enough, and they do start to build a relationship. Then, at the height of emotional tension, Teddy's dad comes out with, "Oh, I need to borrow some money." I was annoyed that his dad had lied about why he'd come to see Teddy, but also with regards to a wider context of the novel, I was annoyed that, as a parent, he'd let his son down. So I reached the penultimate part of this book, part 5, at 12:30 in the morning, and I was going to finish this book that morning. I'd become somewhat disheartened because Teddy had revealed that he was far from perfect. Then I realised that's also a consistent theme throughout this book. A poignant moment for me was when Alice is talking about her parents, how they weren't there for her when she needed them, how they didn't understand or support her. And Teddy just says, they weren't perfect. They did the best that they could with what they had at the time, but they weren't perfect. Well, yeah, wow. At the time, I just thought, wow, that's something I feel that can be applied to a lot of different things in the same context and to the same effect. So after the whole thing with the friend from work, Alice's best friend, Teddy, kisses her again. And honestly, at this point, I couldn't care less about Sawyer. I was all for Alice and Teddy right now. I reached the last part of this book, part 6, at 1 a.m. I was going to finish this book. I finished this book at exactly 1:15 in the morning. Given how Alice and Teddy's relationship with each other was at the end of this book, I couldn't have thought of a better ending. The plot really does come full circle, and I was so happy. This is a must read for romance fans. This is definitely a teen romance. If you're a high school or college bookworm, this book is for you. Please like and subscribe and hit the notification bell so you know when you upload my next review, reviewing The Colour Purple.